To a brand new weekly show we are bringing to you on all three channels. You can see on, well, you can't see on screen right now, but you can see behind me. We are bringing collectively Coys to you on a weekly basis. We are bringing three Spurs channels together to see if we could be something more, something greater. I sound like I'm introducing the Avengers. First of all, let's introduce Adam Nathan, who will be today's representative of Echo of Glory. He will be on the show today. And we've got Jason McGovern, who is going to be representing Last One on Spurs this week. How are we doing, guys? Adam, in the studio today. How are we feeling?
I'm doing well. I think it's a lovely tribute to Ricky Sachs to be about 7 or 8 minutes late on the show today. I think that's really classy touch from us. Really bringing the collective spirit of the three pods together by being a bit late for Ricky. Sort of the pour one out version. So I thought that was really nice. And yeah, great. Yeah. Who hasn't got more time to talk about Spurs? So that's great.
I think everyone couldn't get enough of Tottenham content. So that's why we're bringing yet another podcast. Let's get Jason McGovern. How are you doing today, representing Last Word on Spurs? How are we feeling?
Well, good, mate. I would think 7 or 8 minutes late for Ricky is actually 2 hours early for Ricky. I would go with that. I think most people who listen to Last Word are used to Ricky coming on tomorrow rather than today.
Yeah, absolutely. Season is very fast approaching. We are, 4 days away now from the new season starting. We've had pre-seasons finished. There's been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot happening during pre-season. Still got a lot of injury problems. Still got a lot of signings to make. How are you feeling coming into the new season, Adam? We're going to discuss should we dampen our expectations based on what we've seen pre-season? Because 5 weeks ago, everyone was ready to say we're challenging for the league. So what are we thinking with pre-season?
I'm still thinking overall that I'm grateful that when I saw Will Lancashire score a winning goal against Lincoln on Saturday, that it wasn't for Tottenham Hotspur in the Championship and it was for another club. Because as much as everyone's getting very het up, and understandably, and there's things that the club need to do, we're still 2 to 3 months removed from just the most terrifying period ever. And the fact that we haven't had a League Cup game and a Championship game already, and we go into a Premier League season, I'm still clinging on to the gratefulness of that, and that we're not really stuck in the mud that we could have been.
Yeah, I think everyone has got very excited about obviously the window we've had so far. Everyone's with no signing for the last 5 weeks. Everyone's getting a little bit itchy, a little bit nervous. Are we going to get these signings in before Saturday, which is looking really unlikely at this point? But Jason, the pre-season, the summer started so well. But how are you feeling now with the season just a few days upon us?
Well, I think, as you said, there was so much excitement in the early part of the window. Tottenham were doing big business. We're doing it early, which we've always called for. I felt that there was a real, almost desire from the club to break the 100 million barrier. It was almost as if, to me, it felt like if Newcastle said you can have him for 90, we were still going to say, no, sell him to us for 100. We've got to break this mental barrier that we've got. So that early part of summer was really good. But since the pre-season games have started, there seems to be more questions about us than genuine answers. So many players have seen so little pre-season action and obviously it now is the stage, as you say, where there's huge gaps in that forward line. So every pre-season friendly we've had feels to me like it's our first pre-season friendly, certainly not the final pre-season friendly, and we seem to be miles away from where I'd like us to be. The only good thing is I think a lot of teams are in that boat as well.
Yeah, so given all that discussion, I think you had a topic you wanted to bring up for the stream. So I think let's get into that. What's kind of the discussion you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, so I think we thought that we'd try not to just rehash our shows, right? Yeah. So what we've tried and thought we'd do is if every pod or whatever brings one topic of conversation and we can chop it up. So my one is sort of leading on from what I said about still being grateful that we're in the Premier League, what Jason was saying there, that I just wonder if maybe expectations were a little high in the sense that people expected us just to jump from 17th to wherever straight away, and teams are going to be undercooked because it is the World Cup. We're a bit unlucky, I suppose, that Brentford, the team we're facing on Saturday, are not in that situation. They hit the ground running, and that might be a tough game, whereas if you'd had a promoted team or even someone like Liverpool who look as undercooked as we do. And I just wonder if maybe it's fair to just dampen expectations slightly, particularly for the start of the season, and maybe we can see where we are after the first international break, where we've got a bit more football under our feet and we can go from there. Or, should the expectation be, it's Champions League or bust?
I think we all have, in recent such memories, for example, of Ange's first season. Whereas we're in a similar kind of way, obviously not to the same extent, because under Conte we finished like 8th. It wasn't kind of a relegation battle, but we were in a mess. And then Ange took over in that summer. We made a bunch of signings. And from game week 1, obviously, everyone remembers we hit the ground completely running. We were unbelievable. 8 wins and 2 draws, famously, in the first 10 games of the season. What we would give to have a start to the season like that. So I think we all kind of know it's possible to have that kind of start. I think that summer we had like that settled team. And I think what Jason was saying about pre-season, all these lineups we've been kind of... we've seen, I think he's absolutely spot on. We haven't really had our best 11 at all in pre-season for any games. We've been using a lot of youngsters and all that kind of stuff. I think under that pre-season under Ange, you saw even in pre-season we're using the settled team pretty much from the beginning. So I completely agree. I kind of agree with what you're saying. Like, I can't see Tottenham hitting the ground running this time, because as much as I believe in De Zerbi and I believe that the signings are going to make us a better team, the forward line still has so much work. I still think that the players, we've signed so many players already, even without signing the forward players, they're going to need that little bit of time to gel. And they haven't really had that in pre-season, unfortunately. They haven't had all those games to kind of get up to speed with exactly what De Zerbi wants. Like Fernandes, played the first game and then the last game, and he didn't really play too many games in between. Senesi's only played 1 game. We've still got a lot of players to integrate into this squad. Plus, we are very, very short in the forward line, and we're playing a Brentford team who just everyone knows their job. Everyone's going to be settled. We're playing every team at the moment in the Premier League. It's so competitive, so many good managers, so many good players. So I think 5 weeks ago, everyone was running around the place, celebrating, and rightly so. It was an exciting time. But I think it may be clouded how much work we have to do and how much we still got to do to close the gap to the very, very top teams and those Champions League teams. So as much as I think we have spent that money because we want to be back challenging for Champions League, I think that shouldn't be the expectation. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't expect to get Champions League, as much as that would be brilliant. And that I think De Zerbi would have achieved. I think we're capable of it if we get the right signings. I think people are expecting it, and that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, Jace, there's qualifying for the Champions League, which is one thing, or there's also, I'm very, very big on process, and the journey, should take you to the destination. Do you think there's a way in which we could see a season that maybe doesn't have the results that you would hope for, but still see enough progression that you think, I can really see what's happening here? Not hugely dissimilar to Pochettino's first season, for example.
Yeah, I think under Poch's first season, we had quite a strange start that season, didn't we? I can remember losing at home to Stoke, and we lose at home to West Brom and things like that. And it was hard to see really until Christmas time what we were trying to do. And then we had those couple of good Carabao Cup games and reached Wembley, and you got a feel in that January-February period when we beat Chelsea 5-3 famously. You could start to get a feel of what a Pochettino team would be, and we saw the Capues and the Eunice Caballs phased out, and the younger players starting to come into the squad. So certainly by the end of the season, I would think we'd expect to see a much more fluency. I think it would be a big disappointment, because the perception is we will continue to spend quite big between now and the window, whoever those players are. And I think if we're going to spend, regardless of the net spend, I think if you're going to spend 400 million, it brings a lot of attention to your club from outside. And I think if we were to finish 8th and just have the odd game where you could see it, it would be a little bit disappointing. I think if you finished 7th or 8th, but you reached Wembley or or maybe you beat Arsenal at home, you beat Chelsea, you win some of those big games, if you like. You think, right, and particularly a couple of the big away games, then it's a different feel than if you just beat the teams you expect to beat, don't get a result against any of the big boys, don't get anywhere in the cups, and yeah, okay, we finished in the top half. But I think there has to be a little bit more expectancy than that all round.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, I think there's one thing, the fan expectation, there's also the board expectation, because if they're pumping all this money into the club, there's set to be an extra however much coming in as well. 140 million at least, they're saying, plus maybe another striker, depending on how many outgoings we get. So what do we think the boards have, like, or De Zerbi, when they're having their discussions and their expectations? Are they telling De Zerbi, we have to get Champions League football this year if we're going to back you this hard? Do you think that's the expectation this season for them?
I would imagine if anyone's saying that, it's De Zerbi telling them.
Yeah,
that's
you're
what
right.
if you look at his career as a manager and when he's got the hump, it's often been when he's not supported to get what he perceives as an achievement. And you look at what he did at Brighton, the way he elevated them, and it sounds like that fell apart because he felt like he got them to a level, and the next step there was to go on one more, which presumably is Champions League from Europa League. I suppose that in a club like Spurs, he is thinking, come on, let's go. And I want to be backed to make that happen. You can see with some of the transfers we've done in the perceived overspending, perceived underselling value-wise, that this is obviously it's his summer at the club. He's been given carte blanche to almost do what he wants in terms of ins and outs. And I imagine that's under the proviso of, come on, let's have a go.
He also he knows, doesn't he, that it's a real opportunity this year not being in Europe compared to all these other teams, not just the top teams like United, Liverpool, obviously City and Arsenal, but also these kind of middle of the road teams who overachieved last season. Your Bournemouth, Brighton, obviously Palace are in Europe as well next season. Sunderland as well. It's not going to be easy for them to kind of hold those standards they did last season when you add European football. I think all of those teams probably in Europe for the first time. I think Brighton have had it before, but the other teams, I can't remember them ever being Europe before. So having that more burden on their squads and also having them keep up their standards from last season is going to be very difficult. Obviously, the top teams, they have bigger squads, but the likes of Liverpool, United, we don't really know what to expect from them. And even City, to an extent, we don't know really what to expect from this season. So I think De Zerbi definitely sees this as an opportunity, and it would be an opportunity missed, in a sense, if we don't get Champions League. So I understand that the fact that a lot of fans are saying that's what we got to go for. And I'm not saying that shouldn't be a target, but I just kind of feel like people don't appreciate how much of maybe an overachievement in De Zerbi's first full season going from 17th it would be to get Champions League football straight away. That's kind of what I feel. I feel there's already like an expecting, like, yeah, of course we should go in Champions League, look, 100 million Tonali and all this stuff, but it should be seen as an overachievement, even if we get more signings through the door, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Jason, but if someone said to me right now, you qualify for the Europa League next year, don't know how it's going to happen, whether it's league or cup, I'd probably say, yeah, I'll take that. Thank you very much. I mean, there is an argument now that for clubs of a certain size, being the Europa League is more fun from a fan experience. And you get Champions League money, we don't get it. It goes to someone else. There's part of me that thinks another run in the Europa League could be a good crack.
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit different in that the expectancy isn't Champions League football, but I still look at what's been required for Champions League football and what's been required for top 5 positions. And I think if you look at it, and it's the statistical thing, top 5 football is pretty much 65 points, 65, 66 points gets you top 5 football. And in a season that we had last year, 65 points is only 8 extra wins. Now that sounds a lot, I know, 8 extra wins, but considering we only won 3 home games last season, so you're looking at 10 home wins and 1 extra away win. It's not a huge amount to do. And we saw, 10 years ago, Leicester go from, 17th to win it, and Man United went from 15th to 3rd, didn't they? So 15th to 3rd is the same as 17th to 5th. So I think there is no reason why Tottenham shouldn't be targeting 8 extra wins over the course of it, which still mean you've won less than half your games, but it's enough for top 5 football. So I think Europa League would be the minimal thing. I think I would be very disappointed if we only made Conference League football, but I'd probably be 30% happy with Europa League. But I think you should. There's a great chance for us. The only flip to that is, whilst we talk about all the other clubs having new managers, De Zerbi is still a new manager. You know, as he said last season, 7 games was about one thing and one thing only, but his job really started this summer. So yes, he's been there a few weeks, but he's still essentially a new manager as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about as well expectation, like when we're assessing the squad, how much of our expectation comes into the fact of we have players in the squad at the moment, like Maddison, Kulusevski, to a certain extent, Kudus, Udogie, who are coming into the season. We have no idea how much we're going to be able to rely on them this season. And right now, Maddison looked extremely rusty in the last game, which is to be expected. Kulusevski, still not any sign of him returning. Kudus, there's apparently back in training, but we don't know when he's going to be fully fit. Udogie didn't have any preseason, despite not being at the World Cup, and despite no reports of an injury, just didn't play. So how much do these players go into your assessment of how we should be doing this season in terms of how they're going to be part of the squad?
It's tricky. I mean, there was part of me when we were going on our real supermarket sweep in June, I just thought we'll just buy 4 more wingers, and if you get lucky that all these guys come back, well, that's a nice problem to have, and you can sell 3 or 4 of them in January or next summer when you've got to make up squad numbers again or whatever. But it's hard because clubs are understandably quite covert when it comes to injuries. But it is a bit frustrating when you talk about it. You think about Tottenham, you talk about Spurs to your mates all the time, but you don't actually know what the team, even half the team's going to look like, because we've got no idea where these players are. Kulusevski, if you said to me he'll be back in October or April, I'd believe either one. I mean, that's nuts, really, isn't it? Kudus, I'm hearing Sunday. I'm hearing November. From literally 2 in the same WhatsApp group, you hear the same different things. So it's just, I have to say, if there's one thing that's really got me down over the last few years, losses, we're all Spurs fans. We're absolute connoisseurs in losing football matches, in a pure Thomas Frank style. We're masters of losing. It's the 3-year slog of he's injured. I have found that has got me down so much. We all go to games. When you go to a game, you want to go and watch your best players play. When you're trudging up to a ground knowing that you're going to see a half team, and it's not even like, well, this week, whatever, and they'll all be back next week. They're not back for 3 months, most of these guys. And if there's one thing I really hope we can get out of this year, it's that we just can go to football and watch our best players play, because I do think that makes such a difference as a fan. And you'd have to hope, naturally, that results will naturally flow as a result of that.
Yeah, I was reading an article yesterday. Apparently, only Porro, Vicario, and Van de Ven from last season played 75% of available minutes.
Nuts.
And the season before, it was only Porro, the season before that. So it's like, it's such a good point in terms of being so browbeaten by injuries. It's like we don't even know what team we're supporting, what team to expect. It's like going into the season, you have a vision of what your squad and your team's going to look like. Yeah, it never seems to do. For the last 3 seasons, it's definitely been the case. What do you feel about that, Jason? Like when it comes to the likes of Maddison and Kulusevski and Kudus, like how much do they go into your assessment of how we should be doing this season?
You have to take that into consideration for sure. I mean, I look at Kudus and think, even if he was to be back on Sunday, Kudus is, for me, several weeks away from playing 90 minutes and 90 minutes back-to-back games. I think, if he does come back Sunday, it will be off the bench and it might be 10, 15 minutes at the end or something. Maybe we won't get those answers until after that first international break. Mickey's another one, isn't he? I mean, I find it astonishing that Mickey played the whole World Cup and hasn't kicked a ball since. And he's been back in training, what is it now, 4 weeks? 4 weeks ago, Mickey came back. No sign of him. So, and again, all the club have said it's fatigue, but I don't quite know how you got fatigue from 6 weeks off. But without a doubt, the injuries have have crippled us for a number of seasons, and that's why maybe it's a godsend that we're not in Europe, so that if Pedro Porro's having to play every single game, if Tonali's having to play every single game, that they have got genuine recovery time. They have got a week to get over niggles rather than starting to play as perhaps certainly some I think did through the Ange time, but also last week when they hit the infamous red zone and they're the only available player, then maybe we've risked them before, but hopefully they're not so much in that red zone now. And I think I'm actually quite happy we've got that game against Charlton because I think hopefully that gives Maddison's and one or two others a little bit more game time outside of the Premier League, almost as if, of course, it's a competitive game. We want to win it because we want to have a good cup run. But I said to Ricky a few weeks ago, I'm a little bit surprised we didn't try and put another friendly between the Getafe and the Hoffenheim game, or even try and get a behind closed doors Tuesday of this week or something. So I think that Charlton game will actually help us quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I was just reading a report about our medical team, and apparently they've done this whole review, and we're now starting to tailor each recovery and like medical practice for each individual player. And I'm like, it's 2026. Why have we only just started doing that? And why are we so behind? I'm pretty sure all the top clubs have been doing that like for years. It's like, what has been going on with our medical team for these last few years that has led to all these injuries and led to us it seems like we're so behind the times in all these facets. But how can it be so neglected when all the infrastructure, all the other, the training facilities and everything is supposed to be the best in class? How are we so behind in these medical, the treatment table?
Yeah, Jack Pitt-Brooke did an article a couple of years ago, I think, just after Romero and Van de Ven both got those injuries against Chelsea, or that was the crux of the article, that Ange rushed them both back and they both got injured in that awful night in December 2024. And it does sound ultimately like they changed and got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper in the people they were hiring. I mean, it doesn't sound like a huge surprise when it comes to Spurs, does it, unfortunately? But if there's one thing that the club have appeared to do in the last year, it's they are trying to get the best in class in certain positions, on and off the field. So we have to just hope we can cling to that. I mean, on that, this may be way too optimistic for a show like this, but I just wonder if maybe there's no way that De Zerbi isn't training them very hard, and they're properly putting the work in training. I wonder if common thought is you train, and you play the preseason game that is the sort of the finality of the week's training. Is there any chance you think maybe that the training is so intense and the friendlies are actually not as valuable for players like Van de Ven and Udogie, because what does he need to see out of them in those games? And it's the training that maybe is more important. I maybe really sort of rose tinting the glasses there, but I just wonder if maybe that's something in there, because surely if these players could play, they wouldn't be training, and vice versa. I don't know. It's really strange how the squad's being used this preseason.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, if it's true that there's no injury to Udogie and even Van de Ven, and apparently there was rumours that Kudus could have even played on the weekend, but they're just managing him very carefully. On the one hand, I'm kind of worried that if, like, for Udogie, for example, apparently he hasn't been injured the whole of pre-season. We're just being super cautious. But if you can't play a 45-minute pre-season game without the risk of breaking down with injury, that's also a massive concern. But on the other, I'm kind of encouraged that maybe they are doing things very differently to kind of how we've done things previously, and we're managing these players each differently, each to their own, individually, to make sure they're all ready for the season. Because I think Ange said in the start of his second season, I think that summer there was a Euros, there was a Copa America, and he said one of his biggest mistakes is he basically brought all the players back from those tournaments and they went straight into the team. And Tottenham were going at 100 miles an hour from game week 1 because they wanted to really attack the season. And maybe he should have gradually brought them in, and that was one of his mistakes. So maybe that's kind of what we're doing with a lot of these players, not even necessarily players from tournaments, just making sure that these players, when they get fit, they stay fit. And they're not just fit for a few weeks, they're fit for the whole season. And I think that's one of the things that maybe we've really struggled with over previous seasons. But what do you think, Jason, on our medical staff? and how we've been dealing with certain players over pre-season. Like, do you have any theories about why certain players have or haven't been used?
I think medical staff is a hard one for us because we all watch football. We all think we're the manager. We all think we're sufficiently qualified, even if we don't have our coaching badges. We've seen enough football to have a strong opinion. But the medical information, we never sit down with the medical notes. None of us have ever done a medical course. I think there's a misconception as well with the types of injuries in the, for the Xavi Simons ACLs and things like that. It's important to remember that a lot of the medical care is actually taken away from the club in that, no club actually employs the surgeon, and you see famous doctors, don't you, that deal with all types of sporting injuries, and they will be the people that do the initial operations, and that it's just your basic day-to-day care. But if a ACL is not strong enough, it's perhaps looking at the surgeon's part than just purely always blaming it on Tottenham's medical staff. I think when it becomes muscular injuries, that's slightly different. And we definitely have had too many muscular injuries. But, I do find it strange. I can't believe that Tottenham train players any more intensely than, say, Iraola does, or Guardiola did, or several other managers that play, constant high press football. Why is it that we get so many muscular injuries? And we've now gone through 2 or 3 different medical teams. So that there is a mystery there as to what we're doing with them.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the attackers. Let's talk about strikers and wingers, because we are, as we've said, we're 4 days now, 5 days away from the start of the season. We've 6 weeks since our last bomber, 6 weeks since we signed an attacker. Everyone is waiting keenly to see when the next bomber is going to drop, who that name is going to be. There's lots of different rumours out there. Fabrizio Romano reported a few days ago that Tottenham want Savinho, they want Gakpo, and they want a number 9 in addition to those 2 attackers. But a lot of people have been arguing, I've seen on social media and obviously in our comment section, that Tottenham are getting Savinho and Gakpo, but what they really need is a number 9. That is the position we should really be upgrading in, because Solanke and Richarlison, they're purely just not good enough. We need upgrades in that position. We need a killer. We need someone who's going to get more goals. Richarlison, the latest on him is apparently his interest from Everton, but some other people say he could be set to stay. What is your priority, Adam? For you, is it more important we get those kind of attacking wingers through the door, and then if we can get a number 9, we do? Or should a number 9 be top of the list?
I think getting the right player of quality should be the priority. And if that happens to be a number 9, fantastic. If it happens to be a left winger, great. Right winger, great. I think, for me, my worry as we go into the last couple of weeks is that it appears to be we've got to buy these players at whatever cost. And obviously, you hear some of the reports, and you can't trust the reporting always when it comes to costing. But you're looking at some of the fees being mooted, and you think, well, why would you do that? That to spend money for the sake of spending money is not going to make you a better team. You've got to get the right player. And when I was thinking about the season in general, you look at the last 7 games that De Zerbi had. He took a real ragtag bunch of an injury hit, mentally broken team, and he just put a pretty basic structure in place, and they started playing like a team that's more recognisable. And you have to hope after another summer you bring in ball-playing centre-halves, much better midfielders. Whilst I'm not the biggest fan of Richarlison and Solanke, I do wonder if maybe just by volume of chance creation, winning the ball higher, playing more aggressively, having a left footer on the left at left back, for example, is there a possibility that we end up creating enough chances that those strikers can do it? Again, that may be being fanciful, but we've got players coming back. It's so tricky to know, because when we discuss the players that are injured, if they all did miraculously come back in the next month, then you don't need to sign 3 more forwards. You probably need 1 or 2. But it's just tough to know what we want. But what I don't want to do is, someone like Gakpo, for example, a 27-year-old who Liverpool are trying to get out the door so they can sign someone better. For me, that just doesn't strike me as sensible business. It might make us better now until January, but in the way that Gallagher, on our show, we discussed, in January, is Gallagher going to make the next great Tottenham team? I don't know. And I think we're in a position now where, 26-27 is not the last season of football in history, right?
Feels like that.
Yeah, I know. and football does have a way of making you feel like the next game is the only one that matters. And people sometimes don't look at the longer term picture. I just think spending a fortune on players that don't necessarily have a space in Tottenham's next great team, I'm not too keen on it.
So for you, Cody Gakpo, do you not think he represents a major upgrade in the position right now?
But I think that's upgrading like a 0 or a 1 or a 2 to a 6 or 7. And I don't think that you'll be looking at that money in a year's time when you're then trying to make the next step up. And then you have to try and get rid of the guy. It's same as Gallagher for me, who I'm personally not a huge fan of. I appreciate the role he has. And, in the scenario of last season, he probably kept us up with some of his performances. So I can't quibble at it. But we're now looking at a player who, if everyone was fit, he's not going to be a number 10. He's not going to be a 6 or an 8. And what do you do with this guy on a massive contract?
Yeah, but aren't you at risk at running before you can walk? Because you're saying when we get to that next step, he might not be able to take us further, but we have to get there, don't we?
Yeah, but I would like to think that what we've done so far and the manager we've got, I mean, Jay, loves to know what you think about this.
Yeah.
I think we've put foundations in place to be better already, and we're looking at the final finesse pieces now. And I think dragging our ceiling down for the future is not necessarily the best way to make us better in the longer term.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like you. I don't want to spend literally just for the sake of it, because the big danger is in 12 months' time you're stuck with somebody on 250 grand a week and they're just deadwood in 12 months' time. I mean, I look at a lot of the strikers we're linked with. When you get a name like Brian Brobby that got 7 goals in the Premier League last year, is he really a 60 million upgrade on what Richarlison will do? And I think, as you say, if you're creating more chances, I don't know which one. I mean, Ben's initial thing, I don't know if it's a 9 we need or it's the supply line, because you can have a great number 9, but if there's no supply line, then even that great number 9 is going to struggle. So I think it is bringing in quality. Are you better to wait for Krupi for January till he's fit? When if that's the one you really want, regardless of our personal choices, if De Zerbi said, I really want Krupi, and they decide it's going to be 90 million, I'd sooner we wait than go and spend 60, 70, 80 of that 90 million and then have to struggle around in 6 months' time for it. So, I think we will be better this year, but I want to be better in the right way, not just for the sake of it for a few months and then have to ditch all the plans again next summer and almost start from scratch again.
I agree with what you're saying when it comes to the number 9. I think the kind of talent in the 9 position, unless it's like bringing Kane back or getting Victor Osimhen through the door or getting Lautaro Martinez out of Inter Milan, I'm looking at the striker market and I'm not really that enamored by it. I don't really see too many major upgrades. I think apparently De Zerbi is looking for maybe a little different kind of profile. So right now we've got Richie and Solanke, 2 kind of big physical strikers. Richie more of a penalty box striker. Obviously Solanke's more of a guy who can hold up the ball, use brilliant presser as well. But apparently De Zerbi's looking for a more kind of 9.5 kind of striker. So a Marmouche, Krupi, he's been spoken about, someone who can kind of play in between the lines, a bit more technical, a bit of a better finisher, but more like a bit more of a technical number 9. So if we can get one of those in, like a Migatadze from Villarreal, someone like that, I think if we could swap one of Richie or Solanke for one of those, like a different profile, I'm all for it. But if we're swapping them for I don't know, Mateta, exactly, or Brobby or Balogun or someone like that, I'm not crazy about it. I'm not like, yeah, we have to do that. That's like imperative. I just don't think they're major upgrades. The problem, I think the discourse around the number 9 that we have is the fact that they both haven't stayed fit ever since they've got here. And also they've both never been fit together. So we've never either played them together or they've never been able to actually compete with each other. When one's been fit, the other one's been injured and vice versa. There's never been any competition. So whenever Solanke is struggling, we can never take him out for Richarlison because they've never been fit at the same time. So I kind of feel like if we can get them fit together, we can get them at their very best. We do have two pretty good strikers who are both capable of at least scoring 10 goals in the Premier League. I'm pretty certain about that. So I'm looking at the top goal scoring charts from last season. You got the likes of Calvert-Lewin, Danny Welbeck, like near the top of the charts. Like Solanke and Richarlison, any worse than those kind of strikers? At their very best, I don't think so. But I guess the big question for a lot of fans is, are we ever going to see them at their very best? Solanke there's something missing from him right now. He seems to not have a lot of fire in him, a lot of emotion. He seems to, maybe it's low confidence. I don't know what it is, but he seems to not be playing. Like when he first came, he seemed to be a bit of like a beast. He was so passionate. He was pressing intensely. He was actually really good, but that seems to have been lost with him recently. Maybe it's injuries. And Rishi, I think that's the opposite. We have that with him, but there's maybe a bit of lack of quality. But are we ever going to see them at their best? That's the question. What do you think?
I'm not sure you can... Oh, sorry,
Jason. Go on, Jason.
Just
Take
to
it.
say, I think, Sim, you can get fixated on people get fixated. We need the 20-goal striker.
Yeah.
But you're right. You need goals across that front line. So, if your right winger can give you the number that Brennan Johnson used to do, and your left winger can come up with a similar number to Sonny used to, so they both get 14, 15, then you don't need your central striker to get 20 goals a season. And did Arsenal have anyone that got 20 goals for them last season? But they end up winning the league, and they end up in cup finals, and they end up in the Champions League final. So, I think because we had Kane that just consistently delivered 20, 20, 20 every season, 30 a couple of times, and you get fixated on someone like Haaland that will always deliver that number. But you don't always need that number. It's getting those goals. If your Madisons can score 8 or 9 from midfield, if your number 8 can burst into the box and give you half. I mean, you look at last year and Polina, those 6 or 7 goals were hugely valuable, weren't they? So if you can get numbers throughout the team, you don't have to go and get the 20-goal striker.
Yeah, but I think we can all agree we can't go through another season of Rishi and Solanke both taking turns to be injured, can we?
No, but I would say obviously not. And I don't think anyone here, we're getting some tap saying they were too positive. I don't think anyone here is trying to suggest that Richarlison and Solanke are the next Erling Haaland or anything like that. My contention is that if you had to distill last season into a few bullet points what the biggest issue were, for me, ball progression and pass creation was far more of an issue than profligacy in front of goal from the number 9s. And so if I had to pick my poison and choose one or the other, on the assumption that we're not going to sign 3 frontline forwards in 2 weeks, right? I mean, let's be honest, how many windows have we had where we thought, oh yeah, there are 4 coming in, might be 3, might be 2, I'll take 1. Yeah, that has often happened with the Spurs summer window. And I think 2 is probably more realistic. I think that if we can build a team that can create chances for the focal point, I think there's enough instinct in those 2, particularly Richarlison in certain situations, that we won't be lacking in goal. I don't think we're going to leave games thinking, oh my God, we missed 7 chances. If we're creating 7 great chances, I think we'll win more games than we lose for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. And Jason, what Adam was saying earlier about Gakpo and Savinho, especially Gakpo, his contention was if we sign Gakpo, we could be looking to sell him in, a year's time or maybe 2 years' time once we make that step up. Like, how are you feeling on if those 2 names, Savinho and Gakpo, seem to be the names that are number 1 on the list, but if we're selling them so our rivals can improve, do you think that's smart? If we're buying them, so our rivals can improve, is that smart business for you? Do you rate those players?
That's the double edge, isn't it? I think Gakpo has got a kind of pedigree within the Premier League. He has scored goals in the Premier League, has got assists in the Premier League. Does that enable Liverpool to buy Barcola? Could we go and get Barcola instead? Those types of things. But the first thing is to improve yourselves. That's got to be the basic aim, to come out of the window better than you go into it. And if other clubs have strengthened, you kind of expect that through a window. The Savinho one would be more my concern because, there's a player that Manchester City, okay, he came through their group, if you like, so they bought him under value. But if you buy a player for 20 million 2 years ago and you really think he's worth 85 million 2 years later. And that's enabling them to go and buy Enzo Fernandez and people like that, then I'm not so sure I'd be looking to pay 85 for Savinho. I kind of think the market value for Gakpo would be, if you got him for 60, 62, you're not a million miles away from what Liverpool are asking. But I don't see any club in world football paying 85 million for Savinho. And the thing that we're being told that City have to replace them. They've signed 3 left wingers in that time. They've signed Semenyo, they signed Monga in the summer, and they signed another one from France. So they've bought 3 wingers, and yet they're still saying we need to replace him. And yet he never plays for them. So the whole Savinho thing just does my head in. I don't know where we are with that.
I mean, that one, seems every day we're hearing agreed personal terms. It's set to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And yet nothing seems to ever change with Savinho. But you spoke about Gakpo. Are you feeling the same as Jason? Like 85 million for Savinho, we should be walking away from that.
Yeah, I mean, the football world moves on faster than anything, right? But if you think basically 12 months ago, we were probably all sat around talking about, can we get Eza? Can we get Semenyo? For maybe 125 million combined, roughly. And if we'd done that, there is absolutely no doubt that every Spurs fan thinks, bloody hell, we have just made the team so much better for that money. Like, that puts us on another level to where we were beforehand. I can't honestly look at you and say that for 150 million on Savinho and Gakpo, that we are that much better. Like, they're obviously good. I'm not saying they're not good players. I'm not saying that Gakpo isn't an upgrade on Odebear, for example. But could you absolutely guarantee me that Savinho would have a better season than Tell? Like a no doubt in your mind at all. He's had 2 years at City. He's not shown that much more, right? So whereas Semenyo would have been a million times better than the left winger we had last year. Eze would have been a million times better than playing Bergvall as sort of a left-sided 10. Those are no doubt improvements. I just worry that you're spending a huge amount of money to buy players to buy them, whereas I just don't think that they necessarily come in and represent the upgrade that money should be representing.
I understand what you're saying. I think we are definitely, if we do spend the reported 85 million on Savinho and potentially 70 million on Cody Gakpo, I definitely think we've massively overspent on bringing those players in. But first of all, the market is in a ridiculous place right now. Look, I think spending 85 million on Fernandez is not too different to spending 85 million on Savinho. That's just my opinion. Like, Fernandez obviously had 2 good seasons at Southampton and at West Ham, and he's obviously garnered a lot of interest. But Savinho was unbelievable when he was at Girona in the La Liga. He really broke out, got like 19 goal contributions in that season. I thought in his first season for Man City, he was really good. I think he got like 10 assists, and I thought he looking really dangerous. Last season, for whatever reason, it didn't work out with him. He stopped playing. Pep was going in other directions. But for me, whenever I see Savinho, I understand his kind of, at the moment, his goal contribution rate is quite low. His productivity is quite low. But what I see is a player who can effortlessly take on his fullback. Every time he's got the confidence and the assurance that whenever he gets a chance, he's not going to do what Tell or Brennan Johnson used to do, which is get the ball and turn back and give it off to the fullback. He's going to take him on. If he's one-on-one with his fullback, he doesn't have any doubt in his mind what he's going to do. I think he can play right wing, he can play left wing, and both to equally dangerous effect. He's still only 22. I remember there's a lot of attackers I can remember in my mind who at that age you saw the potential like we see with Savinho, but then they didn't quite have the decision maker of the end product, and that can come with time. I remember Mo Salah at 22. He was very similar to Savinho. Could unbelievably take people on, unbelievable pace, but he just didn't have the finishing and he didn't have the final product. And then it just happened over time. I'm not saying he's as good as Salah. I'm just saying players of that age can improve their decision making. I think Savinho does have final product. I just don't think we've seen it enough. And I think in a Man City shirt, and I think with a regular run at Tottenham, he's going to be, I think people are going to be very surprised about how good this kid is. I think could be something special. I really believe that. I'm
definitely higher on the idea of signing him at his age than I am on Gakpo at his age, even though Gakpo might be a better player right now, just again, for the future proofing of the team. I think signing a 22-year-old with elite potential makes more sense for us than a 27-year-old who is at a good level, and that's his level.
But then I say on Gakpo, as much as I like Savinho, and I think he has a lot of potential. I think Gakpo has also consistently over the last 3 years given us what Savinho doesn't give you, which is consistent goal contributions.
Mm-hmm.
I think he averages like 8 goals a season. He gets 6 or 7 assists as well. He's averaging over 10 goal contributions for Liverpool every season, pretty much. He was part of a team 2 seasons ago that won the league as their starting left winger, and he was really good in that season. For whatever reason, he wasn't so good last season, but I think this is a guy who you put him in front of goal, more often than not, he finishes a chance, and he is more of a killer than any of our other forwards. So I think if you add someone with elite potential like Savinho, who I think right now, if you put Savinho on one wing and Kudus on the other, I think oppositions are going to really hate playing against us, and they're not going to know who to double up on. You add in Gakpo, who can be a bit more of a killer, can add those goal contributions as well. I think that attack all of a sudden goes up levels, not just one level. I think that is an attack that can compete for the Champions League. I kind of feel like it's worth the money. And I think everyone talking about overpaying, like we overpaid for Tonali and Fernandes, and everyone was saying, look, it's not our money. It doesn't matter as long as we get the player. That's kind of how I feel with Savinho and Gakpo.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm certainly not. I don't know about you, Jess. I'm not going to sort of mount, a strong case for the defense against them. It just, I don't know, that they're just not two players that fill me with the level of excitement that the money sort of should carry with it.
But also, just quickly on Gakpo, is he not like can you name maybe 7 wingers in the left wingers in the Premier League who are better than him? Like, is he not like in a similar vein to Tonali? Like, he's probably a top 10 left winger.
It's just the idea that Liverpool fans all seem very happy to get rid of him. And that's my biggest issue is that. In the same way as when Palace signed Brennan Johnson, the comments were Spurs fans saying, thank God we got rid. I think that the feeling from Liverpool fans will be fairly similar. Now, obviously, that's fan tribalism, whatever, and you can't read too much into that. But sometimes when you see so many comments about it, they watch him more than any of us, and that's what worries me slightly about that.
I hear that.
But were a lot of those Liverpool comments based on last season? Because I don't remember too many criticisms of him when Klopp bought him, or even when Liverpool had that first season when they won the league. It seems to have been last year where they completely changed their playing style. Salah obviously tailed off. They had new players coming in, didn't they? Did Liverpool fans really want to see Ekatike? I guess there was the excitement there, and suddenly it's in with the out with the old and in with the new type of thing. I wonder how much of that is really based around just one season where Liverpool had without a doubt they were hugely off the pace and disappointing last year.
Yeah,
my worry with Gakpo is if Gakpo plays left, where's the pace in the team? Because our only current quick forward is Tell, and if Gakpo plays in place of him, where's that real pace in the team?
Yeah, that's where you need Savinho, or maybe Kudus if he's fit. But at the moment, we don't know what's going on with Kudus. But yeah, I think that's the idea of getting Kudus and Savinho, Gakpo and Savinho. Someone who has pace, unbelievable dribbling, and is a threat even if he's not scoring or assisting. And then someone whose threat does come from scoring and assisting with Gakpo, and then you add pace as well. That's kind of feel like what I think the plan is. But just to quickly touch on the strikers one more time, if you had to let go of one, Richie and Solanke, who's your priority of letting go?
I would sell Richarlison just because I think at their best, both of them, the emphasis we're putting on passing from defence, I think Solanke is going to be much better at receiving that, and you can function better as a team with Solanke trying to play from back to front than Richarlison, who's definitely a better goal scorer. But I think trying to move the ball forward, Richarlison does make that quite difficult to play with.
What about you, Jason?
If they were both fit, then I'd keep Solanke over Richarlison. My worry is that Solanke's now, Richie's fitness isn't great, but Solanke, when you look at it last year, he really have only played for about a month in the season, didn't he?
Yeah. Came
back after Christmas, played in February, and then tailed off. He hasn't had a pre-season. I wonder just how bad that and it's still the ankle injury that he had last year. So my worry would be that I don't think we'll ever quite get Solanke truly fit again, in which case I'd sooner lose him than Richarlison at the moment. And I think as well, the money you'd get for Richarlison, going into the last year of a contract, what you're going to get for him, 20 million, I don't think is for what Richie could give us for 20 million this season, I'd probably stick with him.
Yeah, I mean, the number of goals that Richarlison scores, and I appreciate that they still count, but how many times can you think of Richarlison scoring and running into the net to go and grab the ball to run back to the halfway line? Because he's a great scorer in situational football where you're chasing a goal and the ball's in the box and it's scrambling around. I don't think there's many Richarlison goals that come sort of a game positive situation where it's 0-0 or you're winning and you're building. A lot of it is balls in the box, scramble, falls to him, and that's not really the way we want to play this year. So I think his goal tally could diminish just off the way in which we're looking to play.
Yeah, he's not really a clutch forward, is he? And I think, for me, I kind of agree. I would sell Richarlison over Solanke only because he's that little bit older. I think what Solanke's overall package offers you is a bit better than Richarlison. And as much as I think Richarlison's a better goal scorer, I do think Solanke can get goals if you give him the service. I think Richarlison's better in front of goal. He's more alive to situations. He sniffs out the chances more than Solanke does. But I also feel like Solanke's probably a better presser than Richarlison. I think if we're ever not able to beat a team's press, you just give it to Solanke, get on his chest, and he can hold the ball up. And all of a sudden, if the opposition are going man to man, he can roll a defender and bam, open up the space. And I think he can be a better finisher than what we've seen. Obviously, I actually think his goal scoring record's not been terrible when he's played. Like, his goals to minutes, I don't think is bad. Same with Richie, actually. Just the problem is getting him on the pitch has been the main issue. So I would probably sell Solanke. But yeah, I'm sorry, Richarlison. But at the moment, as Jason said, I think Solanke twice in the last year has injured his ankle from attempting a shot and kicking the ground. I think it's happened twice. I mean, if he's injuring himself trying to shoot, and that's happened twice already, and he's been out for significant periods, I think that's a major concern. But the season before we signed him, he played all 38 Premier League games. Like, this guy can stay fit. He's not like some injury-prone striker. So I don't know what's going on with him there and why that's happened. Is there any number 9 that you've got your eye on that you would like?
No, the Villarreal guy seems like he had the traits that would be more interesting. I don't know why no one big goes for Osimhen, but no one big goes for Osimhen for some reason.
Probably extortionate wages, I would say.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, who cares? People, as we say, it's not our money. If he was at the level that he appears to be, there must be something else there. Yeah, I mean, look, if it's 700 grand a week, then that's obviously nuts. But it does seem crazy that no one ever really sniffs around for him more than they do. But yeah, it does seem like Mikitadze, or however you pronounce his name, or bust when it comes to number 9s at the minute.
According to, I saw Paul O'Keefe tweet yesterday that he said he's spoken to his Villarreal contact, and apparently Mikitadze could cost about 70 million as well. So you would have thought he'd be a bit cheaper. But Jason, is there any number 9 who's on your mind?
I think that's the worry, isn't it? The number 9 market is so bad. It really is. I think the Osimhen thing is everyone's fantasy player. I think he's the outstanding number 9 that you can go and in theory can go and get. But I think the wage we'd have to pay him is something like £550,000 a week, and I just don't see us doing that to reach his Turkish salary. There's, even the Saudi clubs are struggling to do that. And when all those truly elite clubs in the world, and Tottenham are a big club, but we're not one of the true elites. But when even the elites don't fancy it, then there's got to be a little bit more to it. I think he caused a huge ruck, didn't he, in a pre-season friendly at the weekend? So maybe there's the temperament issues and things like that. And we've had that with Christian Romero. I don't particularly want to go down that route again. But I think the financial package, Tonali is what, reported to be 275. Can you really see us breaking our wage structure for him and then actually doubling it to go and get Victor Osimhen? I think from Osimhen's point of view, if he does move, he's not going to. I think he'd look at Tottenham more. If Tottenham could say, right, we're in the Champions League this season, maybe we'd be a little bit more appealing to him rather than saying come and play just Carabao Cup games and 38 Premier League games. I think he wants to be seen on a much higher stage than that straight away.
All right, Jason, Adam, I want to thank you for joining us for the first ever episode of Collectively Coys. It's been a brilliant show. Before we leave, just quick prediction, Brentford Saturday, what's the score going to be?
1-1.
1-1, Jason?
Yeah, I'll take a draw now.
I think
everyone's
saying a
not.
draw at the moment. I don't think anyone's confident of winning.
You know what that means, really, they don't you? When people predict a draw, you know what they really mean, but they just don't want to say it online.
It means we're going to lose.
And what have we had? 5 draws there in 6 years, or 4 in 5 years or something, isn't it, Brentford?
Yeah, and they just won 7-0 against Frankfurt on the last week. So I think everyone is saying at the moment, surely we don't go there, when especially with no forward players. But never know. Maybe De Zerbi can surprise us. He probably won with a lot worse teams last season, the back end of last season, those 7 games. But look, if you want to go check out each of our podcasts, obviously we are Tottenham TV. This stream is streamed live on our YouTube channel, but we are collaborating with this podcast with an Echo of Glory, and the link I think will be in the description of this stream if you go check out. And Last Word on Spurs. So if you go over to their channels and subscribe and show them some love, this podcast will be streamed weekly. So do stay tuned for your weekly showing of Collectively Coys. We'll see you again next week. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.